Here we are in Capernaum, the town of Jesus. Jesus may have grown up in Nazareth, but during his ministry, he made Capernaum his headquarters. His residence here fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah 9:2, which tells us that those who sat in darkness in Upper Galilee have seen a great light. In English, we typically pronounce the name Capernaum, but in Israel they pronounce it Capernaum. The name means city of comfort. It reminds us of Isaiah 40, which says, "Comfort, yes, comfort my people, says your God, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together." Capernaum is strategically nestled right on the shores of the Sea of Galilee and right on the great highway from Damascus to Acco and Tyre, known as the Via Maris, or the Way of the Sea, which connects Asia and Europe and Africa. Jesus made his headquarters here because, like Paul, he wanted to reach a population hub that would in turn take the gospel to the entire world.
But Capernaum became his home, his residence. This is where he got Peter and Andrew, and apparently Levi the tax collector as well became one of his disciples. He spoke in the synagogue. John chapter 6. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, and in number about 5,000. So Jesus therefore took loaves, and having given thanks, he distributed to them that were set down, likewise also the fishes, as much as they would. Jesus answered them and said to them, "This is the work of God, that you believe on him who he has sent." So that is a sermon that Jesus actually preached here, right where we're at, in this synagogue 2,000 years ago.
So I don't know if you can see the sign. I'm sure you can. It says the White Synagogue, because it's made out of white stone, built upon the remains of the Synagogue of Jesus, which, as you can see, is black stone. So the upper synagogue is a newer date than the synagogue at Jesus' time. Here we have the synagogue in Capernaum. Beautiful, beautiful synagogue here. This is where Jesus would have spoken at the synagogue, except for this synagogue is obviously newer, built upon the one that he would have preached in.
Now, the typical synagogue in those periods is a little bit like this. They're all built in the same principle with different sizes. There is, the people sit around, probably around the walls and also here in the center, and they pray. We sit all facing one side. Which side do we face? Jerusalem is the correct answer, because if you're in America, it's true, you face east. But if you are in South Africa, you face north. If you're in China, you face west.
Capernaum was the backdrop for many of Christ's mighty miracles. For example, it was in the city's synagogue on the Sabbath that Jesus cast out a demon. On another occasion, 4 men carrying a paraplegic climbed to the roof of the house where Jesus was teaching and slowly lowered their friend's pallet to the floor in front of him. Seeing their great faith, Jesus immediately healed their friend and said that his sins were forgiven. It was also in this city that because of the great faith of a Roman centurion, Jesus healed his servant who had palsy without ever going to where the servant lived. Other miracles included the healing of the nobleman's son, healing Peter's mother-in-law, and healing the synagogue ruler's daughter, which he brought back to life. Capernaum was the metropolis of Galilee and one of the most prosperous and crowded districts in northern Israel. During Jesus' day, the city had a population of approximately 1,500. It was large enough to support both a synagogue and a church during the time of the apostles. The building you see in the distance, past the ruins of the homes, in the foreground is a church. And just underneath the church is what they call Peter's house. How do they know that it was Peter's house? They don't. But it does have a unique shape. an octagon. That sets it off as an unusual building, more likely the shape of an early church. This 5th century octagonal church became a common type of building in the Holy Land after the time of Christ. To early Christians, the number 8, an 8-sided building, symbolized Christ's resurrection on the 8th day of the week. This church is built on a large piece of land, so it must have been the home of a prominent member of the community, such as Peter, or his mother-in-law, or even Jesus. I suppose it could have even been Jesus' home. In time, it became a sacred place, and a church met there. So the assumption is this could have been where Peter lived. While Capernaum is uninhabited today, it stands as a powerful testimony to a master teacher who chose this shining city on the sea as his headquarters, which would eventually spread the gospel to the entire world.